You think you can't let go because you love them. You tell yourself it's devotion. You call it loyalty. You dress it in the noble clothes of fidelity and deep connection. But listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The person you cannot release is not the one you love most. They are the one who holds the key to your own darkness. That obsession you call love, it's your shadow staring back at you, wearing their face. You don't love them. You love what they reflect of your own unfinished business. You love the parts of yourself you've buried so deep you forgot they existed. The one you can't let go of is not your soulmate. They are your mirror. And mirrors, my friend, show you exactly what you don't want to see. You've been told that deep love means never giving up, that true connection requires endless pursuit, that if you just hold on tight enough, love will conquer all. But what if I told you that your inability to let go has nothing to do with love, and everything to do with the parts of yourself you refuse to face? What if the person haunting your thoughts is not your destiny, but your unintegrated psyche walking around in human form? The shadow doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It finds a face. It borrows a body. It becomes the person you cannot stop thinking about. This is the cruel joke the universe plays on you. It presents you with someone who feels like home and hell simultaneously, someone who makes you feel alive and destroys you in the same breath. And you call this love. But Alan Watts knew better. He understood that what you call love is often just your psyche's desperate attempt to complete itself through another human being. That burning need you feel, that's not love. That's your shadow calling you home. That person you can't release. They're not your missing half. They're carrying the parts of yourself you've been too afraid to claim. Every quality that draws you to them like a moth to flame exists within you, buried beneath layers of conditioning and fear. Every trait that repels and fascinates you simultaneously is knocking on the door of your own consciousness, begging to be integrated. You cannot let them go, because letting them go would mean facing the terrifying truth. You are already complete. Since childhood, you were taught that love means holding on, that commitment means never letting go, that the depth of your feeling is measured by your capacity to endure, to wait, to suffer in silence. They told you that real love conquers all, that if you just love hard enough, long enough, desperately enough, the universe will bend to your will. So you learn to grip, to cling, to make your love into a prison where both of you suffocate. But here's what they never told you. What you call love is often just your unconscious mind using another person to work out your own psychological patterns. That person who triggers you most, who makes you feel most alive and most destroyed, they carry the exact frequency of your own inner conflict. You can't let go because letting go would mean facing the void inside yourself that their presence temporarily fills. You can't release them because they are not separate from the part of you that feels incomplete, unworthy, abandoned. Your attachment is not love. It's your psyche trying to heal itself through someone else's body and soul, and that, dear seeker, is the most selfish thing you can do in the name of love. The person you're obsessing over didn't choose to be your psychological completion. They didn't sign up to carry your unfinished emotional business. Yet there they are, living their own life, while you've made them the center of your internal universe. You've projected onto them every quality you've denied in yourself, every strength you refuse to claim, every darkness you refuse to own. They become larger than life because they're carrying the weight of your entire unlived existence. This is why they feel so essential to your survival. This is why losing them feels like losing yourself. Because, in a very real sense, you have lost yourself. To a projection, to an illusion, to a psychological game you didn't even know you were playing. Look closely at what you find irresistible about them. Is it their confidence, their creativity, their ability to speak their truth without apology? These are not foreign qualities you need to acquire from outside yourself. These are aspects of your own nature that you've been trained to suppress, deny, or shame. The religious conditioning that taught you to be humble instead of confident, the family patterns that rewarded conformity over creativity, the social programming that punished authenticity and rewarded performance. All of these forces conspired to bury your true nature so deep that you forgot it existed, until this person walked into your life and reflected it back to you. Suddenly you remember what it feels like to be fully alive, what it means to be unapologetically yourself, what power looks like when it's not twisted by shame or fear. But instead of recognizing these qualities as your own birthright, you make them dependent on another person's presence in your life. You give away your power to someone who was only meant to remind you that you had it all along. This is the tragedy of projection. This is the prison of attachment. This is what keeps you circling around the same person like a planet trapped in orbit. You think you need them, but what you really need is to reclaim the parts of yourself you've given away. You think you love them, but what you really love is the feeling of being reunited with your own disowned nature. The person you cannot let go of is not your salvation. They are your invitation to come home to yourself. Alan Watts understood something most people spend their entire lives avoiding. We are not separate beings bumping into each other in the cosmic darkness. We are patterns in the same fabric, waves in the same ocean, notes in the same eternal song. When you cannot let someone go, you are not holding on to them. You are holding on to a projection of your own unconscious material. The Jungian shadow, that part of yourself you've rejected and hidden, does not disappear. It gets projected onto others, particularly those who evoke the strongest emotional responses in you. The person you obsess over carries the disowned aspects of your own psyche. The qualities you find most irresistible in them are often the ones you've denied in yourself. Their darkness calls to your darkness. Their light illuminates your buried light. This is why you feel so alive around them, and so destroyed when they're gone. They are not just another person. They are your psychological completion walking around in separate skin. But here's the profound truth Watts would whisper. True love is not about completion. It's about wholeness recognizing itself in another whole being. When you need someone, you cannot truly love them. You can only use them. The universe is playing a cosmic joke on you. It presents you with the very person who will trigger your deepest wounds, your most buried shadows, your most desperate needs, and then it calls this love. But Watts knew better. He understood that this triggering is not love. It's curriculum. It's your soul's way of showing you exactly where your healing work needs to happen. The person you can't let go of is not your reward. They are your teacher, and the lesson they're teaching is always the same. Learn to love yourself enough to stop needing others to complete you. In Eastern philosophy, which deeply influenced Watts's thinking, there's a concept called dependent origination. The idea that nothing exists independently, that everything arises in relationship to everything else. Your obsession with this person is not separate from your relationship with yourself. Your inability to let them go is not separate from your inability to embrace your own wholeness. They exist in your consciousness not as an independent entity, but as a reflection of your own inner landscape. When you understand this deeply, not just intellectually, but in your bones, everything changes. The person you've been chasing becomes a doorway rather than a destination. The love you've been seeking becomes a mirror rather than a remedy. The completion you've been craving becomes an illusion you can finally see through. Watts called this the wisdom of insecurity, the understanding that trying to make the impermanent permanent is the root of all suffering. The person you cannot let go of is impermanent. Your feelings for them are impermanent. Even your need for them is impermanent. But the consciousness that observes all of this coming and going, that is eternal. That is what you really are. Not the one who needs, not the one who clings, not the one who projects, but the awareness in which all of this psychological drama arises and passes away. When you identify with that awareness instead of with your psychological patterns, letting go becomes as natural as breathing. Real love flows like water from a full cup. It gives not because it needs to receive, but because it cannot help but overflow. The person who loves authentically has already found completeness within themselves. They don't love to fill a void. They love because they are already full. This is the love that releases, the love that blesses and lets go. The love that says, I love you enough to set you free from my need for you. When you love from wholeness rather than emptiness, attachment transforms into appreciation. Possession becomes blessing. Need becomes gift. You begin to see the other person not as your missing piece, but as a complete universe unto themselves, beautiful, mysterious, and utterly separate from your psychological projections. This love asks for nothing because it already has everything. It grasps at nothing because it flows like a river that knows it will always have water. From this place, if someone leaves, you feel sadness but not destruction. If they stay, you feel joy but not desperation. You love them for who they are, not for who they are in relation to your wounds. This is the love that Alan Watts called the wisdom of insecurity. The profound understanding that nothing permanent can be built on the shifting sands of psychological need. True love is spacious enough to include goodbye. Imagine loving someone so completely that you want them to be free, more than you want them to be yours. Imagine caring for someone so deeply that their happiness matters more than your attachment to them. This is not the desperate clinging of emotional neediness. This is the generous overflow of inner abundance. When you love from this place, you don't lose yourself in another person. You find yourself more fully. When you love from wholeness, every relationship becomes a celebration rather than a rescue. Mission. The person who loves authentically knows that they are already complete. Others are not there to fill gaps, they are there to share in the fullness. But this kind of love requires something most people are terrified to face: the courage to be alone with yourself, the courage to sit in the silence of your own company and discover that you are enough. This new virtue is not built on sacrifice or self-denial. It's built on self-recognition and inner abundance. It doesn't say, I will give up my needs for you. It says, I am so full that I naturally overflow into giving. It doesn't say, I will endure your absence. It says, I am so complete that I can appreciate your presence without requiring it. This love doesn't come from emptiness trying to fill itself. It comes from fullness recognizing itself everywhere. When you love from this place, you become like the sun, shining not because you need something in return, but because shining is your nature. You become like a river, flowing not because you're trying to reach the ocean, but because flowing is what rivers do. You become like a flower, blooming not to attract anything, but because blooming is the expression of your essential nature. From this place of inner fullness, you can finally love without agenda. You can care without controlling. You can connect without clinging. And paradoxically, when you stop needing love so desperately, you become infinitely more lovable. When you stop grasping for connection, you become magnetic in your wholeness. When you stop trying to complete yourself through others, you become someone others want to be around, not because they need you, but because your presence reminds them of their own completeness. But even this enlightened love must die. Even the purest connection must eventually dissolve back into the silence from which it emerged. Watts knew this. Everything that arises must pass away. Every attachment, no matter how beautiful, must eventually release its grip. The person you cannot let go of today will one day be a memory. The love that feels eternal will fade like footprints in sand. This is not tragedy. This is the natural rhythm of existence. In the end, you must learn to love your aloneness more than your connections. You must find the silence within yourself that needs no reflection, no completion, no external validation. The shadow you've been projecting onto others must be retrieved and integrated. The parts of yourself you've been seeking in another's eyes must be found in your own depths. Solitude becomes your teacher. Silence becomes your lover. The void you've been running from becomes the womb of your rebirth. In this sacred aloneness, you discover that you were never incomplete. You were never missing anything. You were never broken. You were always whole, always perfect, always enough, just playing at being lost so you could experience the joy of finding yourself again. The one you cannot let go of was never yours to keep. They were a temporary constellation in your sky, beautiful and brief as a shooting star. Let them go. Let them all go. Return to the silence that birthed you. Every person who has ever entered your life was just a wave in the ocean of your consciousness, beautiful, temporary, and ultimately returning to the same source. The love you thought you needed from them was always available within you. The completion you sought in their eyes was always shining in your own heart. In the end, all relationships dissolve into the silence from which they emerged. All connections return to the void that is not empty, but infinitely full. This is not something to fear. This is something to celebrate. Because in that silence, in that solitude, in that sacred aloneness, you finally meet the one you've been searching for all along. Yourself. There is a profound wisdom in knowing when to withdraw, when to step back from the stage of relationship and return to the audience of your own awareness. Even the most enlightened love affair must eventually give way to the deeper love affair with existence itself. Even the most beautiful connection must dissolve so that you can remember the connection that was never broken. Your connection to the source of all connections. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is not emotional avoidance. This is the mature recognition that all forms are temporary expressions of the formless. The person you've been clinging to will one day return to the same silence from which they emerged. Your feelings for them will dissolve back into the same awareness from which they arose. But the awareness itself, the consciousness that observed the entire drama of attachment and release, that remains unchanged. When you identify with that unchanging awareness, instead of with the changing contents of your experience, you find a peace that no relationship can give you and no separation can take away. This is the ultimate letting go, not just letting go of the person, but letting go of the one who needed to hold on. In this final release, you discover that you were never the one who loved or needed or suffered. You were always the space in which love and need and suffering appeared and disappeared. You were always the silence in which all the stories of attachment and loss played themselves out. Return to that silence. Rest in that space. Remember what you really are. If these words have touched something deep within you, write this in the comments. I release what was never mine to keep. Let that simple sentence be your commitment to authentic love. Love that blesses and releases. Love that flows from fullness rather than emptiness. Your shadow is calling you home. Your wholeness is waiting to be remembered. The person you cannot let go of has given you the greatest gift. They have shown you exactly where your healing needs to happen. Thank them, bless them, release them, and in that releasing, find yourself. Watch the next video if you're ready to go deeper into the mystery of your own completeness. The journey into authentic love has only just begun. But for now, sit in the silence. Let the words settle. Let the truth take root. You are already whole. You were always whole. The search was just a game you played with yourself. Now the game is ending. Now the real life begins. The mirror is breaking. The projection is dissolving. The shadow is coming home. And you, the real you, are finally free to love without needing, to connect without clinging, to care without capturing. This is what Alan Watts knew. This is what he would tell you if he were here. The one you can't let go of is the one who reflects your shadow. But you are not your shadow. You are the light that casts it. Remember this. Live this. Be this. The universe is waiting for you to come. Home to yourself, take a breath. Feel your own presence. Notice the awareness that has been observing this entire journey of understanding. That awareness, not the story, not the attachment, not the need. That is who you really are. From that place of recognition, love becomes not something you do, but something you are. From that place of understanding, letting go becomes not a loss, but a liberation. From that place of wisdom, the person who once seemed impossible to release becomes just another beautiful wave in the ocean of your own consciousness, rising and falling, appearing and disappearing, always perfect in its impermanence. Write your commitment in the comments. Make this understanding real in your life. The shadow is ready to come home. Are you ready to receive it? The projection is ready to dissolve. Are you ready to see clearly? The real love, the love that needs nothing and gives everything, is ready to be born through you. Are you ready to be that love? Your answer lies not in words, but in the quality of your presence in this moment. In the space between thoughts. In the silence between words. In the awareness that remains when all the stories of love and loss finally fall away. That is where Alan Watts's deepest teaching lives. That is where your true nature awaits your recognition. That is where the one you've been seeking has always been waiting for you to come home.